item I'd like to speak to. I don't necessarily want to pull it, but I just want to bring everyone's attention to 5.1.14, and that is the friendship agreement that we have with Mayor Thomas in Germany. We sent them a letter of friendship to their country. I hope everybody got to see the pictures in the paper they had in Germany. That was really kind of neat, that we're a little famous in Germany as well. And I really want to thank the committee and all that they have done for this. They've done a great deal of behind the scenes work, and it's really great. It's really neat that we're going to twin up with a city in Germany. So I just want to thank the committee for all they've done and leave it at that. So we have 24 items then to receive for information. Can someone move that, please? Moved by Amanda, second by Jerry. All in favor? Carried. Okay, Daryl, you asked for 22 to be pulled. Would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, no, thanks there. I'm sure we've all had a chance to glaze over the Clean Fuel Act there, if you would. It's quite complex and very confusing. And as Mr. Borson has alluded to, it's like the 2.0 of the natural heritage study. It's confusing as heck. It's in the farm papers now too. People are talking out, they're overwhelmed. And anyways, I'll touch on this too. It did come to county as well. It caught the county off guard. A few of the council members there thought we should have some more information, and basically we're reaching out to our MP and BP if they can fill in a little more. I personally don't think they're going to be able to tell us much more than we already can read there, and I'm pretty well rounded in it at this point, and I can't support it at all. Of course, it's quite serious, if you would, and land snatching in my mind, and quite confusing. I don't even know how they can implement that, and the millions of acres and how to monitor that all. So I won't be supporting it. I was wondering if we could draft something up here and reach out that we don't support this, and we need to get other members on board. That's what I have to say on that. And maybe Andrew wants to speak on it too.
Oh, sorry. Andrew, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, just a little bit. It sounds like there's going to be some upcoming consultations with technical working groups. I guess that acronym came out in the report in the spring, I'm seeing. I don't know whether it'll be a county level thing, but yeah, it's we've seen how much I guess uproar would be the best word for the natural heritage plan. I was hoping the local agricultural groups get a say on this and some input onto designing it or whatever feedback the federal government would like. But I don't know so much about sending out a letter to the feds saying we're not on board with this without actually seeing the whole plan first. But I just would like to keep an eye on this. So if staff sees it come up, if they could please put it in a report, or if county councilors have it come across their table, if we could just keep the lower tier involved, that would be awesome. Thank you.
So just to elaborate a bit what the county's doing, the county's asking someone from the grain farmers to come and make a presentation, or asking our MP to come and make a presentation at county council. So that's what we're doing there. So what would you like to do here with this? Would you like to receive it for information for now, or do you want to take an action, or what would you like to do with it? Andrew?
I'd say receive for information.
Okay, so moved by Andrew. Do we have a seconder? Daryl? Okay, any more questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, we have no delegations, we have no public meetings and no public hearings, so we'll move to planning. And the first item on planning is 8.1.1. It's a Geese subdivision here in Milverton. So Sally, are you with us? You can.
Good evening, everybody, Mayor and members of council. I am here to talk to you about subdivision 14-01, and that is for Bill Geese in the south part of Milverton. Now, we did talk about this subdivision back in, I think it was February, and we talked then about the modifications that are being proposed by the developer. Just in brief recap, we have the block for a pedestrian walkway to connect to the trail for this subdivision. We have the remaining renaming, of future development blocks for future street stubs, and we have the introduction of semi-detached units along the most southerly street, and all of those being desirable and certainly recommended as modifications that we want to move ahead with. The final piece that we're circling back for is the 2 blocks that were identified to be lot additions to neighbors on Jolene Court. And the concern there was the neighbors had drainage issues, and they wanted to be it confirmed really that these lot additions were going to be a satisfactory solution. So in the report, I do talk about some of the efforts that were made both by planning staff locally and at the county, and also the engineers at BM Ross on your behalf, and the developer themselves and the neighbors. So we've come together, we've had a conversation about some of the figures around pre and post development flows, and there has been an agreement reached in writing with both of the abutting landowners receiving these blocks. So as of today, the second agreement has been reached. So that being the final loose end on this modification, the review of the modification, I'm recommending that it go back to the county, or go up to the county for approval. So I'm seeking your recommendation as well this evening.
Okay, thanks, Sally. Any questions for Sally? Seeing no questions, we do have a motion that the Township of Perth East receive the report titled Proposed Modification to Draft Plan Approval of Subdivision File Number PE 14-01 for William J. Geese Construction Limited for information, and the Township of Perth East recommend to the County of Perth Council that the proposed modifications to draft plan approval of subdivision number PE 14-01 by William J. Geese Construction Limited and located at part of Lot 9, Concession 3, formerly in Mornington Township, now in the Milverton Ward, Perth East, be approved subject to the attached Appendix 2 amended conditions. Moved by Jerry, second by Amanda. Is there any more questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, now we'll move to the official plan amendment for revised surplus farmhouse dwellings. Sally?
Okay, Ashley, if you're able to, or someone there is able to put up the slides that I sent as a PDF, that would be helpful. It's certainly not critical, but what I'd like to do is just carry on, and if it's possible to put them up as I go, that'd be great. So what
Sally,
I want,
do you have them on your screen? We can just share your screen and then you can flip through.
I can. It has been a bit problematic, so the PDF version I sent you does flow a little better, but I'll see what I can pull up here. I'm not enabled to share my screen just yet. If your administrator could make that possible. Anyway, I'll get started and I'll give it another shot there.
Oh, here we go. They're working on it.
Okay. All right. That wasn't the report that I wanted to share. Okay, I'm going to carry on anyways.
Okay,
Without that, because what I wanted to share was some PDF slides just to help follow along with the conversation, but
yeah,
we can manage without, I'm sure. So tonight I wanted to bring forward to your council the official plan amendment that the county's undertaking with respect to the surplus farm policies. So it's important certainly to run through it with you with each of the lower tiers, and also to encourage and to provide sort of more, get the word out a little bit more, certainly for the public to participate. And I have sent out to folks in your staff there to post on your webpage as well, a public consultation tool. So there is a place on our website now at perthcounty.ca where you can find more information about this amendment. You can read about frequently asked questions, and you can leave your comments and questions there as well. And those end up coming directly to me via email. So I'm able to respond to people and collect all the comments in one place. And so I do encourage people to visit the Perth County website to find access to that engagement tool. And I'll supply the website URL a little bit later. The website really is available to individuals, organizations, agencies, and certainly lower tiers. So I encourage anybody out there with questions and comments to utilize it and to share with me what, and therefore council at the county, what it is that you think about the amendment. So we're going to go through it tonight. There's essentially 5 subparts, and I'll begin by saying a little bit about why we're doing this now. And essentially, after about 4 years of using this policy and it being implemented, we're finding through implementation that, after some time we have some unanswered questions about how to use the existing wording there, and we could use some clarifications or some tweaking, if you will. And also there's a potential for some efficiencies in our processes to be gained. So the 5 things that are in there are really surplus and being surplus to a farm outside of the county. We're going to talk a little bit about minimum size and residential uses and what that means. And we're going to talk about barns, and we're going to talk about keeping of animals, and we're going to talk about home industry. So the first part then is a proposed removal. So it would be some text removed where it says that the farm must be surplus to an operation that's also contained within the county. And I think it's something common that we could all understand and see, that farm operations have land holdings that sometimes cross municipal boundaries. And the question is really whether or not that is an appropriate measure for eligibility. So I'm brought to the definition of a surplus farm dwelling, and in the provincial policy statement, it talks about that farm being surplus as a result of consolidating pieces of property into one business unit. So it doesn't speak in there to whether that business unit is operated cross municipal boundaries. What really creates the eligibility is that a farm has multiple land holdings, and that they are operated as one business, and that within those land holdings there are extra houses essentially. So the utility of this particular policy that we have in place now about the requirement that the whole holdings that it be surplus to something contained within the county doesn't have the utility that we had hoped, I guess, because people are requesting site-specific amendments to find relief to this criteria, and it's approved time after time. So the utility perhaps isn't there. And the recommendation then in this text amendment is to simply just remove that as a criteria. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is residential use, and that will bring us to a conversation about minimum size. So when we think about what is a residential use, certainly a house comes to mind, obviously, and perhaps a pool, a garage, a yard. This is the kinds of things we expect to see in a residential property. And in a rural area, we do find that there's other things coming to that visualization, if we stopped and think about it, and that would be things like a windbreak or potentially a shop or a shed that's perhaps a little bigger than what you might find in town. And sometimes the maintenance of that property requires something a little bigger in order to store larger equipment for that property maintenance. So what we do need to do, or what we're proposing to do, is consider that a rural residential property does have different characteristics than what we would find in town or in a village. And what this amendment proposes is to remove some of the prescriptive language in there that really limits the use of the residential use to 2 or 3 or 4 things, and those being the house, a garage, a pool, a driveway, a home occupation, and a bed and breakfast. So right now that's very prescriptive, and it doesn't necessarily allow us to look at the unique characteristics of an individual property, or really the potential influence that it being in a rural area is having on what the rural use might look like. So the proposal is then to remove some of that prescriptive language and to include a few words that would really get us to that place where we could look at properties on a case-by-case basis and truly evaluate what is needed for that residential use, or what is required or seems reasonable for that residential use. And the overarching goal is always, when we look at a surplus farm dwelling severance, to minimize the amount of land going with the residential property, and to leave as much land as possible with the agricultural parcel that's being retained. And so with this amendment, what we would have is language that's a little bit more flexible for us to look at a property and evaluate each of the characteristics of the existing building stock, and really look at, okay, what is the residential use on this particular property, and are these buildings that are proposed to be used for this residence something that we could consider accessory to that house, meaning that they're not taking away from the residential character of the lot, that they are secondary in use and nature to that house, and are they situated in such a way that the lot size can be minimal, and leave as much of that land with the farm as possible. So that really brings us to a common question, which is, what is the most appropriate size for a surplus farm dwelling severance? And my thoughts there are that there is no set size, and that we do really need to look at each property individually. And certainly once you get over that maybe acre mark, you start to really hone in on the residential use and the specific layout of that lot, and evaluate each of the things inside that proposed lot line, whether or not it's part of the residential use or an accessory to that residential use, and have we minimized the size. So that's really what the amendment is trying to get at. And a misconception that I often run into is that there are a narrow strip left, or a stand of trees, perhaps, or maybe it's a steep slope or a grassy corner that we often hear, well, that's not farmable, so it'd be great, it makes more sense to put it with the house. And I would actually disagree with that there's not something about those landscapes that necessarily makes them required for the residential use or necessary for the residential use. And at the same time, I find those things are present on farms all throughout the county. So they may not be farmable from the sense of producing a crop on that specific area, but they are things that are normally found on farms. And so those areas really should be excluded in order to minimize the size of that severed lot. So again, it's really about keeping it minimum size and having the flexibility to look at what that means on an individual parcel. So one of the things we're introducing in this amendment is something called a home industry. And what you'll see in the text amendment, which is embedded in the report that's in your agenda package, is that we're introducing the term home industry. And what that means is today we have in there a home occupation, and that allows someone to work from home or to make a living on their own property, provided that they're doing the type of work that could happen inside of a house. And what a home industry provision would do is allow someone the flexibility to make a living at home, even though the type of work that they do doesn't necessarily fit or is appropriate to put inside of a dwelling. So it allows us to consider that someone might want to work at home, but yet that business or that occupation would be housed within an accessory building instead of inside the dwelling. And in that text amendment, you'll also see that there are a number of parameters listed. Things like that the home industry is really meant for the occupants of the property, and outside storage would be limited to a certain amount. And the intention there is that a home industry is not to create a business property. It's really to find this balance between not discriminating against a specific type of work and allowing people to make a living at home, but to look at different types of work and yet maintain the residential character of a property and ensure that the business or the occupation that the person is conducting at home is discreet enough that the lot continues to feel like a home, look like a home, and really be residential in nature. So what ultimately happens with these kinds of home industries, certainly not everyone, but I have worked in municipalities where this is permitted now. And we have a lot of entrepreneurs out there who in Perth County become quite successful. And I do like to talk to them, at the start of setting out their business, or hopefully there's an opportunity to talk to them along the way, where when they get to that point where their business is ready to grow and they are finding success, and they intend for their business to grow, that's the time at which they really need to move that investment to town. So when they start to grow out of those parameters in the text that maintain it as a residential property. So the amendment is really aimed at some flexibility for people to work from home, to recognize that there's accessory buildings out there on some of these lots that could house somebody's employment, their own work from home, and to create some parameters for that to maintain the residential character of these properties. This is something that a lower tier would implement through zoning, and you could certainly find that you may have the need or the desire to make those parameters more prescriptive. But if this amendment was put into place, then you would have that opportunity to allow this type of use on those lots. And you could, in fact, become more prescriptive on those parameters, but you just wouldn't be able to become less prescriptive about some of those things. And again, building on the concept of accessory use, I want to talk about barns a little bit. So right now, there is the policy in there is really leading to the need to remove or take down some of the barns that we see in the countryside, and these barns are recognized as part of our cultural heritage and part of our identity here in Perth County. So I was questioning what utility or what we're achieving by automatically making it that they need to be removed. So if we consider the notion that we talked about a few minutes ago about accessory uses and what it really means to be accessory to a residential use, then perhaps some of these barns could be converted to other uses. And that could happen through renovations within the barn to remove some of the stabling and feeding and watering equipment that's in there. And at that point, a building official could come and confirm that there's a legitimate effort here to convert this use, and that that is going to be used for other than livestock. And that opens then a window of opportunity for us to look at its proximity to the house, and again, whether or not it's contributing to that size of that lot being considered minimum or a little bit too large. And we could perhaps end up with some of these barns then being considered an accessory building on the residential lot. So it does create a bit of an opening there for these barns to be preserved and used for other things. Similarly, it would allow for the same to happen on the retained farmland. So they could be converted to other uses and become accessory to the farm use as well, whether that meant storing wagons or whatever. So again, it's about accessory uses, about using existing building stock and recognizing the value in preserving some of these buildings. That is not to say that livestock could be kept in them. It's important to recognize that on the severed property, the residential property, that livestock operations from a farming perspective are not something that's permitted in Perth County. And on the farm side, if the barn was to remain on the retained farmland, then it could still be used for a livestock operation, but it would have to meet the minimum distance separation to that residential lot. And so there is that flexibility in there today, but we would like to see some flexibility in there for it to be converted for other uses if it was close to the lot line. And talking about barns certainly leads us to a conversation then about livestock or the keeping of animals. And a livestock operation perhaps is not something that we're ready to permit on these severed lots, but I do run into many requests or questions when we're looking at a new application that they have an existing chicken coop, for instance, or they have rabbits, or so the person who wants to buy this home is interested in keeping a 4-H animal, perhaps a sheep or something. And so given the rural character and the location of these lots, what's being proposed in the amendment then is a bit of a baby step towards keeping of animals on some of these severed lots, and to create a permission in there for a limited amount, and not limited through numbers. But what I've actually relied on for the amendment is some existing language from the minimum distance separation guideline. And it talks about 10 square meters being a threshold where you wouldn't have to necessarily do a distance calculation. And that implies that compatibility issues are minimal and odor issues are minimal. So I picked that as an existing threshold out there that can be easily measured as perhaps this baby step towards keeping of some animals on some of these lots. And certainly, if we reflect again on this residential use, accessory use, the keeping of animals on these properties would have to be considered for the people that live there, whether they're pets or they're producing eggs or what have you. But it's not meant to be a business. It's meant to be keeping animals for your personal projects or use. And so that really is the balance of the five subsections, I guess, subtopics of the amendment. I should say that with respect to the livestock piece and the keeping of animals, I have heard rumblings of late, the last 6 months or so, about the province really questioning whether or not municipalities can restrict the livestock on these lots because they are still within the agricultural designation. And so that's a bit of a loose end that I am trying to track down still, and spending some time in meetings over the next month with the province and trying to glean more information about that. But in the meantime, I think this might be a way for us to allow someone to keep a chicken coop or a rabbit hutch or what have you. It's the most utility it's going to have at that low number is really for smaller animals and smaller numbers of animals. But it's an opening of the window, at least, to not make someone remove something that's there, or to allow someone to have something when they choose to live in the country. So that's really the bulk of the amendment. It's very important, certainly, that when it's brought before County Council for a decision, that there is feedback from each lower tier and feedback from the public. And so that's why we've launched the web tool, and also why I've come here to explain the amendment tonight, so that your council will have an opportunity to discuss it and then provide feedback to the county, which then I would use in my report and bring before the county council for a decision. So the web engagement tool is going to be up for the month of October, and that gives me a target somewhere in November to bring a report to county council. And so certainly there's flexibility around how Perth East Council would like to do this, but I am looking for feedback from your group, from your council at some point, hopefully within the month of October. And whether you do that through resolution or written letter or what have you is really up to your discretion. So I'm happy to take questions about the amendment, and we can go from there. And I should give you the URL. It was in the slides, so I'm gonna just say it here slowly now and hope that you can catch it. But Ashley does have it there at your municipality if you want it, or you can email me to certainly to pick it up again after tonight's meeting. And it is perthcounty.ca/SFD. Those are capital letters for surplus farm dwelling, and then no space and lowercase public input. So perthcounty.ca/SFD public input, no spaces. And I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, thanks, Sally. Questions, Daryl?
Yeah, no, thanks, Sally. There again, this is a refresher, if you would, for a few of us here. This came to county, right to a T, this report. For me, the bank barns, it is a big one for me. There's so many of them out there, especially to the south, that have been sitting empty for over 30 years now. And some of them are quite tidy and smaller ones without all the additions. And it for sure would be something that we need to look at, especially if they're within the cluster, to save them. They tend to get fixed up nice if they can stay with these properties in other municipalities. People take it to heart, and it's nice to see. So that's a nice one for me. So no, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Amanda?
Just adding on to what Daryl noted about the barns, I'm really happy you brought that up. There is a new group formed. It's like called the Ontario Barn Preservation Group, and they're trying to collect history of these old bank barns. So for anyone who knows of someone who might be taking one down, they're encouraging them to document that before they do so. And then obviously if we can sort of prevent some of that from happening, I think that's probably a good thing from a historical standpoint. So great work.
If I may build on Councillor Broadhagen's point, the Ontario Barn Preservation Group did give a really informative presentation at County Council last week during the public meeting for this amendment. And I believe it's still up on YouTube if anybody wanted to hear what they had to say. They had slides, and it was based on the research that they've been doing, and it was quite informative. So they have submitted that as formal comments and a letter as well.
Okay, anyone else? Questions? No, okay, seeing no questions, we do have a motion that the Township of Perth East received a report entitled Proposed Official Plan Amendment to Revise Surplus Farm Dwelling Policies for Information, and the Township of Perth East Council submit their comments and questions to the Council of the County of Perth and County Planning Staff regarding the amendment in a written or electronic format of their choosing. Moved by Hugh, second by Andrew. Is there any more questions or comments? I guess I have one question. Do you want to do this individually, or do you want to send your comments into Ashley and she will submit them as a group? How do you want to do it? You?
I think if anybody has any comments, they should send them in individually. I don't think it's necessary that we have to have Ashley collect them up and send them in. I
Okay.
think everybody should be able to do them individually.
All right. No, that's fine. Just that we all know how we're going to submit them. So that's fine. If everybody could submit their own then through the website that Sally gave us. Okay. All in favor of the motion? Carried. Okay, we will now move to a application to sever by Eckert Farms, and Sally, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. I will actually be presenting this application. My name is Luisa Bacondio. I work for MHBC Planning. We have been retained by the County of Perth to assist with the review of development applications, and as such, I will be presenting this application. So before you have two recommended motions, one being that the Council of the Township of Perth East receive this report for information, and secondly, that the Council recommend to the County of Perth Land Division Committee that this application be approved, subject to the 9 conditions identified in the report. I will now provide a brief summary of the application. So the owners of the property, Eckert Farms, have submitted this application for consent to sever an existing farm dwelling, which has been deemed surplus to the needs of their farm operation. The severed lot currently contains a 1-story single detached dwelling, a small shed, and a buried septic system and water well. The proposed retained lot would have a resulting area of 40.2 hectares, which would be still within the minimum required lot area. The proposed retained lot contains farmland and 2 water courses. Now, I note in the report that it does note that there was a large barn, but to my understanding and through site visit and photos contained in the report, I can confirm that that barn has since been demolished. So the retained farm lot is simply farmland. So I am available to take any questions that you may have.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Luisa? Jerry?
Just a trivial question. Condition number 3. Is this because of the current situation? I've never seen that the proponent needs to return the sign. I thought planning would always pick the signs up.
Yes, no, my understanding is that given that county staff have put up the signs, that it'll now be a requirement. This has been a standard condition that has been included in the most current applications that we have put forth.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Questions? No, if we have no questions, okay, we do have a motion that the Council of Township of Perth East received a report entitled Application for Consent to Sever number B38-20 by Eckert Farms Limited, affecting lands described as Lot 35, Concession 1, Ellis Ward, 5390, line 34, Perth East, dated October 6, 2020, prepared by the MHBC Planning Consulting Planner on behalf of the County of Perth for information, and the Council recommends that the County of Perth Land Division Committee approve the application for consent to sever number B38-20, Lot 35, Concession 1, Ellis Ward, 5390, line 34, Perth East, subject to the following conditions. And I'm not going to read all the conditions. I'm going to give you the condensed version. So the The solicitor has certificate of official will be scanned and attached to the electronic registration of the transfer. Number 2, that the county provide a description that is consistent with the application registered under the Registry and Act of Land Titles. Number 3, that confirmation that the sign is returned. Number 4, that the apportionment schedule for municipal drains is reviewed. Number 5, that the township receive an amendment that for the zoning be changed. Number 6, that confirmation be received that the property owner has entered into an agreement to prohibit any new permanent resident dwellings. Number 7, the reference plan be prepared by a licensed land surveyor. And number 8, that the all financial requirements to Perth East have been met. And number 9 is that taxes have all been paid in full. So anyone would like to move that? Moved by Amanda, second by Daryl. Is there any questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, thank you very much, Louisa. Now we will move to Teresa, the reopening report. And you did receive that report in a separate email. So I'll turn it to Teresa. Here. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear okay?
I muted you so I can't talk.
Okay, thank you. As outlined in the report, the approval or the recommendation from staff is for the reopening for the municipal office on October 13th and for council meetings to remain virtual. With the council meetings, staff are of the opinion that we don't have basically the technology and the distancing in place currently that we would make the recommendation for council meetings to go in person. As outlined in the report for the municipal office, we've currently, ever since going in and closing the doors for COVID, we've maintained providing services to the public uninterrupted. The recommendation, as well as outlined in the report, indicates that the steps that we've taken. So we're hopeful that people have embraced the ability to access the services. We will continue to monitor in terms of walk-in traffic. And also with this recommendation, there will be a requirement for anyone coming into the municipal office, as similar to staff in terms of social distancing, making sure that the screening takes place, as well as wearing masks. If there's any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Okay, Jerry?
I don't think I see it in the report. Is there a specific number that you would allow within the, that little greeting area of the township office?
We do, sorry. Okay, we do have that breakdown in terms of 2 within, I believe, actually, I know that Becky had prepared that calculation in terms of 4. I'm not going now. 4 within the actual reception area and 2 in the lobby area at any given time.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, any more questions? Oh, Jerry?
Yeah, so I agree with everything in the report. As far as the recommendation, so we're not putting an end date with this recommendation as far as when we would start our in-person council meeting. Does that mean we're going to review this every council meeting, or myself, I would like to see a date set, probably I was thinking the end of 2020, that they would remain virtual, and then in the new year look at it our last meeting of 2020. But if there's no date, I'm fine with it, but perhaps maybe a date would have helped with staff, give you a bit of a target. Just my thought.
Throughout this and with COVID, we've, of course, we've had to change as we go along and not a lot of notice in terms of things. Certainly if something were to come, forward in terms of like we continually are looking for best practices and recommendations for council meetings as well. I think like other municipalities, we're trying to work our way through it. But certainly we will be bringing back a report towards the end of the year regarding meeting in person council meetings, or if we would be recommending to carry on with the virtual ones. Similarly, going back just to the municipal office as well, one of the things in here in terms of the recommendation is for the opening on the 13th. But given everything, if indeed the numbers were to go up or we encountered, we're continually monitoring these and reevaluating so that if we needed to actually have that recommendation to close the doors as well, we would be bringing that forward to council.
Hey, Jerry.
Great, thanks, Teresa. Yeah, so I'm happy just to leave that last as meeting remain virtual.
Okay, Daryl.
Yeah, no, I'll just chime in here. Rhonda and Hugh as well are aware, of course, because they were part of it. We did meet at County Council at the new paramedic center there in the staff room there. There we went with microphones down the center, one camera. We were all there, except two, and the staff, as far as the heads of departments, they weren't there. They just chimed in. We did enjoy and like the way it worked. As far as I'm aware, it did pick up our voices well with just the speakers in the middle. Now, that is something I think we could maybe consider. I don't want to step on anybody's toes, and we could continue with the dial-in, but it helped. There was very good feeling with everybody there, just bouncing things. It did seem quite nice. There again, they could make a little splatter screen between each of us, so the plexiglass there again, you could run with a wire frame with a piece of paper barrier too, would be still very sufficient and look good. It's something we can consider. I mean, with COVID here, it's changing so much. It is making it difficult on staff the whole time. And respect where Teresa's coming from as well. It is ugly times. There's so much information to digest right now, how long this may be or won't be, or may have had COVID, who hasn't. That's changing daily too. I'm where Jerry is. We'll look at this in a while. Thank you.
Okay, just to add to Daryl's comments, yeah, we did have they called it a hybrid. So they had a camera at the end of the room, and two counselors chose not to come. So they were on a screen at the end of the room, which was great. We don't have that in here. So to set it up, it's going to take staff some time to figure out how to set it up. And if some choose not to come in person, how to get them on the screen, how we get the council members that are here on the screen. And then we had staff, they all came in by Zoom too. So it is challenging to try to figure out how we can make it all work, whether our council chambers is big enough or not to take it to the perk, then we don't have the cameras. So staff is looking into it, and hopefully someday. It was nice to see everybody. I get that part, but I think for now we're going to have to keep doing our Zoom meetings, and hopefully we get to that point somewhere along the line. So, Andrew?
Yeah, just for a little history for the counselors that weren't on, we have spent quite a bit of money on this system we have currently in the council chambers. I'm wondering if we get a hold of the vendor and just ask them why they recommended what they did and why it's not working the way we anticipated it would work. We don't want to be throwing any more money at it. I hate to mention it, but we have spent quite a bit of money on what we have now. So, we'd hate to just kind of pitch that money away, but it is what it is. If that's one of the major concerns is we can't communicate the we're doing now, which isn't that bad as far as electronic format. Maybe we should be considering the money we've already spent on it.
So Andrew, just in regards to that, we did reach out to the company there, and the person that's looked after installing all of our system no longer works there, and they don't have a replacement. So we are kind of on standstill until we can hear back from them and have someone from that company come and take a look at what else we can be doing to make it work in here.
Also, in terms of meeting in person with the council meetings, in terms of the capacity, the room capacity for that social distancing, it becomes a little problematic when we include council members, our managers, our support staff, and then if we have, and as council are aware, the public meetings, public hearings, delegations that we may have. So there would be times where we would be over exceeding our current limits in terms of that social distancing as well.
Okay, Jeremy?
We talked about having some sort of Ethernet adapter. Are those in now? Or do we have an ETA on those?
Here it is. I have mine.
All right. So can I pick that up from the office? Do I just have to call in and come and grab it then? Or how does that work for delivery?
Yeah, Jeremy, they just came in today. So
Okay.
Wendy she'll be looking through those tomorrow probably.
Okay.
And if not, we can get you yours. But yeah, they just got here this afternoon.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions, Jerry?
I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, so that the Council Township of Perth East receive the Stage 3 reopening the municipal office and holding of council meetings report prepared by the CAO dated October 6, 2020 for information. The council approved the municipal office opening to the public on October 13, 2020, and that council approved that council meetings remain virtual. Moved by Jerry, second by Jeremy. Any more questions? All in favor? Carried. Anything else, Teresa?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, Ashley? Okay.
So the first report here is for an engineer appointment for the south branch of the northern municipal drain. I don't have anything else to add if there's any questions.
Anyone have any questions on that drain? No questions. We have a resolution that the Council of the Township of Perth East appoint Dietrich Engineering Limited to prepare an engineer's report under Section 78 of the Drainage Act for the South Branch of the Northern Municipal Drain, Part Lot 32, Concession 11, Northeast Hope Ward, Township of Perth East in the County of Perth. Moved by Daryl, second by Amanda. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, our next is Curryville Municipal Drain. Ashley?
I don't have anything further to add to this report if there's any questions.
Okay, do we have any questions on the Curryville drain? Seeing none, that the Council of the Township Perth East received the request for repair and improvement, Section 78 of the Drainage Act by property owner Maggie McDonald for the Curryville Municipal Drain, Part Lot 31, Concession 13, Ellis Ward, Township of Perth East for information. And then in accordance with Section 78 of the Drainage Act, the appointment of an engineer will be considered at the November 3rd, 2020 regular council meeting subsequent to the notice advising of the proposed drainage works being sent to the Secretary Treasurer of the Conservation Authority that has jurisdiction over the lands in the affected area. Moved by Amanda, second by Jerry. All in favor? Carried. Anything else? Nope. Okay, now we'll move to finance. Rhonda.
Good evening. My staff report is on amendments to the current budget policy. The proposed amendments that are in my report are basically due to technology and some practice changes. There's nothing real crazy in there. In the worksheet attached, there's columns for the current policy along with proposed changes in the rationale. Nothing further to add unless there's questions.
Okay, any questions of Rhonda's report? Daryl?
Yeah, no, thanks, Rhonda. Just basically just streamlining a few things and some housekeeping.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Hey, you gotta take your word. It seems to make some sense. So thanks.
Okay, Andrew?
Not my dog. I know we had talked about in, I think it was in visioning or at some point about changing a little bit of how we look at it to get a 5-year historical by department, just a high level overview type of this is how much we spent last year. I know it's not a very good snapshot, just so we can see, kind of track on, and ask questions about why things are going up or down. And I didn't see that in this. I don't know if it's in there, Treasury people, but is that something we need to put in the policy, or is that just something that you guys are gonna give us a PowerPoint on or something at budget time?
Thanks, Andrew. No, I didn't put that in the policy. That is easy enough to do. We can either we can have it added into one of the reports if you wish, or we can just do it. It's up to you, if that's what council wishes.
Okay, Andrew, what do you wish to do?
Yeah, it's I think the data should be there. It's your opinion, it's not a big time consumer, then we can just go ahead and do it. It's not really so much how we do it. It's just the presentation part, which is very good in my opinion. But I guess I'll write a note in my sheet here and look for it at budget time. Hopefully, we pick it up. Thanks.
Go ahead.
I just asked for clarification on that. Like I can easily print a 5-year historical. That's not a problem. Were you wanting more of a presentation and more information, or you just want the numbers?
Just a graph by department would be great. As much detail as is easily available. If we want to look at capital and admin costs and just just kind of see where everything's going and has been, and that's kind of the idea.
Okay, Carol?
Yeah, no, I remember that conversation well. Thanks, Andrew. Good point for sure. Yeah, I think maybe, something you could tie in here in policy revise there, just when possible, show us a graph of the department. Yeah, it would be nice. I have to agree with that. I do remember the conversation on this. Oh, great. That's it.
Okay, so is that possible, Rhonda?
For sure, it's possible. My apologies, I do remember the conversation as well, but I didn't think to put it in the amendments, but it's no problem. I was just thinking maybe put it in the second meeting, budget meeting. I'll throw it on the calendar. So that'll be a minor change to the policy that's above and beyond what you see tonight, if that works.
Yeah, thanks very much. We'll try it out and see if we need to tweak it later. Thanks.
Okay, any more questions? So I'm not going to do the Reader's Digest for this one because it's too much to do that. So we have a motion that the Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report prepared by the Treasurer dated October 6, 2020, entitled Budget Policy Review for Information, and at Policy L 1.06 Budget Development and Control Policy be amended as follows, as in your package. I'm not going to try to read them all. So any more questions? We need someone to move that. Moved by Hugh, second by second by Daryl. Any more questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. Anything else, Rhonda?
No, thank you.
No? Okay, then we'll move to Wes.
Good evening. I'm looking for pre-budget approval for a loader, snow blade, and some bins for at the landfill.
Okay, any questions of Wes? Errol?
Yeah, no, Wes, that it seems to make sense. I understand you're going to need a loader there simply now for the bins and the platform that's there. And it won't be hard grunting work that loader's doing there. I'm suspecting more lifting and not heavy duty. So yeah, it's a end of life cycle for the loader, if you would. You know, the one concern, you know, just make sure, I know you guys will anyway, but make sure the brakes and that stuff are up to par. You know, there'll be a lot of braking and maneuvering the bins, you know, and we just want to make sure that safety stuff's in good shape. Leaks on the cylinders, just a quick look, you know, and be careful. It's in the public quite a bit there, so. But no, it makes sense to me for sure. You know, like that, you know, give it the opportunity to get some good life there and make it last well in that situation. Thanks.
Okay, anyone else have any questions for Wes? Seeing no questions, we have a motion that the Council of the Township of Perth East received a report entitled Pre-Budget Approval, Fleet and Equipment dated October 6, 2020, prepared by the Ministry of Public Works and Parks for information, and that Council of the Township of Perth East authorized pre-budget approval for the capital purchase of one front-end wheel loader, that Council of the Township of Perth East authorized pre-budget approval for the capital purchase of one front-end wheel loader snow blade attachment, and that Council of the Township of Perth East authorized pre-budget approval for the capital purchase of six yard capital capacity bins, and the Council of the Township of Perth East direct staff to retain the following assets and reassign them to landfill operations, M54 case loader and M54 attachment. Motion moved by Andrew, second by Amanda. Is there any more questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. Anything else, Wes?
No, thank you.
Nope. Okay, thank you. John, you have anything? Nope. Okay. Next, Becky.
Yeah, so I had brought this to council earlier in regards to the lack of having agreements with the recreation associations that are managing property. So we put that together now. I guess the one thing I did fail to do was Shakespeare Athletic Association does have an agreement already in place for their the recreation fields there. And it expires in 2028. So that might be whether council wants to consider revamping it so that it's the same and that they're all coming up at the same time. That would be up for council's consideration. And so if there's any questions.
Okay, any questions for Becky? Jeremy?
Have you talked to the associations about this? Like, do they know these are coming, or is this going to be brand new to them? They don't have a clue that this is happening.
Yes, they don't have a clue.
Okay, any other questions? So what is your wish? Do you want this one to be for, it's 10 years, is that correct? Becky, 10 years? Or do you want it?
These ones are 5, I believe, or are they not?
5 years? Okay, so do we want it for 5 years or do you want it to come due when the Shakespeare one comes due? Amanda?
I think it makes sense to do it when the Shakespeare one comes due.
Okay, so we would do it for 8 years, correct, Becky?
2028, yeah.
Yeah, 2028, okay. Do you want that in the motion? Okay, So Council of the Township of Perth East received the lease agreements for Township Recreation Facilities Report prepared by the Recreation and Community Service Manager dated October 6, 2020 for information, and that the agreements for Millbank Recreation Association, Milverton Minor Ball, and Newton Athletic Association be approved for submission to the said organizations and expire in 2028. Do we have a month, Becky, that expires? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, that I just didn't have it open here.
It's usually the end of the year.
Just, I think it's
First?
December,
And these will come back to council.
December 19th.
Oh, Ashley's telling me that these will come back to council for final approval with a bylaw, so we could put the date in then.
In there, yeah. I think Shakespeare's December, but yeah, we can take a look at that.
Okay. All right. So do we have a mover and a seconder for that motion? Moved by Amanda, second by Carol. Is there any more questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. Okay, anything else, Becky?
I guess I could just update that the arena is open effective last night. Everything is going really well. I just checked with the staff here tonight, and everything is going well again tonight. Everyone's following protocols. It is very quiet in the facility without having people running around and being there, but so far so good.
Okay, great. That's great to hear. Okay, we'll move on. Bill, do you have anything for fire?
Nope, nothing. Thank you.
Okay, we have no correspondence. We'll move to council reports. So my meeting log is there. Is there any questions on what I did for the month of September? No questions. Okay, committee reports. County Council, the one thing that is going on is our transportation committee with the buses. We're going to have a what they call a soft launch. It's going to be launched on the 16th of November. We have 2 routes that are in Perth County. And unfortunately, we've left it so long that now we can only get 1 bus to do those 2 routes. So we are going to have 1 bus go around within Perth County, and it'll Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, it'll do 1 route. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, it'll do the other route. We're hoping in January we have 2 buses to do each route. So we'll see how it all goes. I think, it's a good first step anyway, and we'll see what happens. So does anyone else have anything that they would like to report from any of their committees or groups? Seeing nothing, okay. A motion to accept then my report and the meeting log. Moved by Amanda, second by Andrew. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we do have bylaws to be read a first, second, and third time. And this is bylaw 61-2020, being a bylaw to exempt lands from taxes levied for municipal and school purposes. And this is for the Optimist Club of Ellis for the Livestock Hall. So we need someone to move that. Moved by Hugh, second by Jerry. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we do have a need for a closed session. So if with your permission, we will move it later on in the meeting. So do we have any notice of motions? Any new business? Any announcements? Carol?
Yeah, no, it's really not an announcement. Just a quick question. I apologize. It's for Wes there. Payments at the landfill. Did we ever start accepting cash there again or not?
No, it's debit only, our charge.
No, is that something I think we need to revisit there? Every place now is accepting cash. And then I actually did have a few people ask me what's going on. I just cash, farmers in particular. Wallet sometimes doesn't make the tractor. I think that's something we could consider. And I don't know, maybe every fast food restaurant again is taking cash, everything. Is that something we could open back up to normal eventually?
I actually just spoke to our landfill attendant there, and she said it's going very well the way it is now. It's definitely something we could look at in the future. Maybe we could.
I just think it's good. It's good business at this point. Virtually every place is taking cash. Of course, hey, now that we have that option, I agree. I'm assuming a lot of people are going to do that way, but we need to be inclusive to everybody. And it's just, in my mind, I think it's something we should put back maybe to normal. We would. I don't know where the rest everybody else is on that, but it is, everybody's taking cash again. So just thought I'd put that out there. It's something I think we should open back up. I don't know if we need a motion or movement on that, but I just thought I'd put it out there. Maybe Teresa has something to say on that.
Thank you. It's certainly something that we could monitor as well in terms of the number of people that are coming in with cash. One of the reasons, of course, we went into going into COVID in terms of safety for our staff was that, and also there was an investment made as well in terms of, you know, the debit machine or the being able to use a debit. As well, we've got a lot of customers set up, like the regular ones set up that they have accounts. So we've also, and maybe Daryl, you've had some comments. We've had a lot of positive comments regarding it. You know, similar to you can go through a drive-through restaurant and you see the person in front of you and they're paying by debit, right, for a coffee. So you know, it's certainly something we can monitor as well and have that option in place. But the you know, as you are aware, there was a reason that we've invested that amount of time and money into that option for the debit as well.
No, I do agree 100%. It is good business to have those options, but at the end of the day, cash is legal currency. I think it's something we should, as much as we were under the pandemic, like I said, newspapers everywhere, they're taking cash again. And it's just something I feel we should, I think we should open back up. Just to, again, it's just good business. It's inclusive for everybody, for the few old people, stuff like that. Thanks.
Okay, Amanda?
Just more of an update. On October the 1st, the Optimist Club of Alice and the Perth County pork producers had their drive-through pork chop barbecue, and there was over 1,040 tickets sold. And our very own Mayor Agates and MP John Nader actually helped serve as people went through the drive-through, and it was a huge success. So kudos to everyone who participated. And yeah, it's really awesome to see that happen in our community.
Okay, thanks, Amanda. Anyone else? So maybe just going back to Daryl's, and maybe in a month, next month, we could revisit. Maybe Wes could bring something back and we could revisit whether we want to go back to cash again. Is that possible? Teresa, Wes?
If I may, it's just that we as well accept cash. Of course, we're going to keep what we've put in place. And yes, there's been money spent, but it was well overdue, and we're aware of that too. So it's just that we're inclusive to all tenders, all cash, and all people, just in case. That's why it's cash is, yeah.
Can I say something? Or not? You did. Okay.
As far as reporting back, it's either we accept cash or we don't. Like it's, to me, it's, if council makes a decision that they want to accept cash, then that's what it'll be. So I really don't know why we would want to need to report on it. So just my thoughts.
Okay, Amanda?
On this topic, I'm going to have to actually disagree with Councillor Hurlick. I think in the times that we're in, people expect and know that the preference is to not like to, have that contactless payment. And I just think with heading into the cooler weather and things like that, I think it's probably best that we maintain as is. Again, we've made an investment with the debit. There's fees that we have to pay. And then if we're encouraging people to pay cash, like we need to have enough people going through that system to obviously make it make for it to make sense for us to continue offering that service. I just think that yes, it's a nice to have, but I just think that people understand that this is the expectations now going forward. And we get enough regular people that they're kind of comfortable with that process. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Okay, anyone else? Andrew?
I appreciate both sides of it for sure. But I'd like to see a little information on what it would mean to staff and how much time it would consume and any costs. So maybe a brief report on that in the near future would be beneficial so you can make an informed decision. I also have seen a lot, especially in Stratford, a lot of cash used, a lot of cash. So including myself, sometimes that's all I have, right? And my app seems to be non-functional on my card, right? So we'd hate to, I can see Councillor Hurlick's point and Councillor Broadhagen's point, but we'd hate to turn somebody away because they didn't have a debit card or make them feel uncomfortable because they didn't have that technology available to them. So I'd like to see a brief report just on the basics, nothing too shiny and fancy. What it's going to mean for staff. Is there any extra cost? So that would be what I would like to see.
Okay, anyone else? Daryl?
Again, not to drag this out, I guess at this point, the best thing we can do is touch in with the health unit and see what the counties are doing. If the majority of businesses are taking cash again, if it's something at this point, I've seen reports that the touching of cash is something that they feel now. Again, COVID is viral, not bacterial, so it needs to go through air, not through bacterial, and that's all why they started accepting cash again. So maybe touch in with the health unit is the best thing we can do at this point. See the recommendations, what everybody's doing. And maybe that's how we decide to go forward.
Okay, Amanda?
Just quickly, I'm fine with us with the status quo. However, if we are doing a report, I would just ask that we get a refresher on the cost again for our debit machine. I know that already has been brought to council, but just have that as something to be noted. Because there is that cost. So if that is included in the report, if council decides to move forward with that, I think that would make sense for us to have that refresher again. It's already been brought up.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else have any other announcements? I just have a couple before we go. We want to wish Ashley a very happy anniversary. Today's her anniversary. And we're going to wish John a happy birthday. So happy birthday, John. So on that note, we do have a closed session. So we thank everyone. I thank everyone for coming. It's good seeing everyone. Have a safe week. And I think council has another portal to log into. So if you could log into that and we will continue on. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Are you emailing Jean or Teresa?
Okay. Oh, here, I'll turn my volume off. Okay, I experienced some technical difficulties. So anyway, we need to, do we have motions coming out of close? So we have bylaw number 62, 2020, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council of the Township of Perth East at its regular meeting held on October 6, 2020, be read a first, second, and third time. Moved by Amanda, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. And the meeting of council be adjourned at 8:52. Moved by Andrew, second by Daryl. Oops. Okay, all in favor? Carried. Okay, thanks, everyone. Good night, great night, and good seeing everybody. Take care, and we'll see you all later. Bye.